Welcome to the Modern Homes Podcast with Rob Clemens.
Frank Dominic.
All right, well, good to see everybody. Frank, what you been up to?
Real estate.
Real estate.
Lots of it.
Right,
It's
man.
Been hectic.
Are you getting any fun in your life right now?
I do.
It feels like you're doing a lot of real estate.
Band's playing.
Well, and I
you
have...
landscaping?
Landscaping too. All right, your own house or others?
My wife, my house. My wife does 90% of it.
Okay, well, yeah, she is a trooper, your wife.
Well, she's the landscaper.
Well, that makes sense.
I'm the employee on that.
Yeah, right. She's the employer, if you will,
yes.
and you are the, that's good.
Shot caller, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, nice.
When it comes to landscaping, that is.
Right, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, all things going well in Myrtle Beach. We got some nice announcements we'll be talking about. Carolina Bays actually recently got named in the finalists for the Best on the Beach contest for both home building and sunroom. So that was pretty cool. Two categories this year. Mm-hmm. We got a couple other nominations.
2 for 2.
Yeah, 2 for 2, man. So we're trying to win some awards and, just navigate in the waters. But Frank, I get this magazine, and so we're going to give credit where credit is due. It's Pro Builder Magazine. Mm-hmm. And you get this when you're a member of the Home Builders Association, mm-hmm. I believe. Mm-hmm. And so they have these good articles. And I felt like there was a relevant topic in here today that we really, it's probably about as apropos as anything. We have had recently some problems with fires in the area.
It's in my area.
Can I say that?
Forest.
Should I say it's a problem or is it a potential problem?
Lately it's more of a nuisance. It's been contained for quite a bit, but from my understanding, it's in a part of the wetlands where they can't access it. So even during the rains, when it gets doused with moisture, it's still kind of simmering underneath because they're unable to get all the way out to where the actual fire is.
Okay, so
you have embers that are still cooking along there, kind of like coals on a grill. They eventually just dissipate, but these are
eventually
so
right.
And we are in Carolina forest.
You're
so
right.
There's a lot of forest there.
There's that. Well, it's been a weird scenario because and again for viewers out of the area, we're located in Myrtle Beach, mm-hmm. and there's surrounding areas. Carolina Forest is part of Myrtle Beach, but. Tell me a little bit about what that experience has been like to you. It's kind of scary, right?
The beginning part was a little bit nerve-wracking because the development where this started is we're pretty safe from the fire because there's a 4-lane main thoroughfare that crosses through the center of Carolina Forest, and we're on the other side of
mm-hmm.
it. But there's a neighborhood across from us it's directly where it's happening. It's called Walker's Woods.
Oh, okay.
It's in the back of Walker's Woods. I want to say it's called the Preserve, Walker's Woods Preserve.
Yeah.
From what I understand, it was actually the neighborhood next over, which is my nephew lives in there. It's called Covington Lakes. Mm-hmm. Somebody in the back of Covington Lakes was they were burning either trash or doing a cookout mm-hmm. or something. And they had their little fire pit thing too close to the wooded area. Mm. It was very dry as it can get here over time.
Yeah.
And they had zero water source or a hose to put anything out. And evidently this kind of spread, and by the time she could get to trying to put it out, or if she even attempted, it was already spread.
It's one of those things where, I understand everybody.
That's my understanding of it.
Okay.
I don't want to, accuse anyone of anything, but somebody was named. That was what was happening. And the downside to this is because of the embers that are going on now, but all these communities from the main road, they're all communities with nice entrances, beautiful homes.
Yeah.
But in the back, that woodlands and wetlands are still there because they're being preserved. That's where it's all connected.
Right.
So it could go through all the neighborhoods. Now, at the front of my neighborhood, some people had some things land in their driveway which were still sort of hot and smoking. So some people were spraying their roofs over there to keep them wet.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah. A pretty scary event. I know that when it first broke out, there's always a fear. You don't know what's going to happen. You really don't know what's going to happen, and your worries have to go to your family, mm-hmm. your animals, your prized possessions. They can be sensitive, heirloom type of stuff. Mm-hmm. And all this is happening, and I just can't even imagine what it felt like. We're down in Myrtle's Inlet where I live, so I wasn't really experiencing it. But I knew one of the firefighters pretty well who had just worked all through the day and all through the night on that. Yeah. And he said it was terrifying. He said you just don't know what was going to happen. And so it's a real deal thing, and it's still kind of lingering a little.
I came out today with my coffee. I opened the slider to the back porch of my house, and it's smoky.
Man.
Because as anybody who knows anything about weather, when the pressure drops, temperatures drop, everything kind of falls. That's why you see morning fog that dissipates.
Yeah.
Well, our morning fog lately is smoke.
Right,
So
right.
people at the front end of my neighborhood have gone on to post on our Facebook page for the community how it's affecting them health.
Really? Okay. Interesting.
What my
certainly.
wife and I have decided to do is we've turned off our HVAC at night. So in the morning, while the temperature's low, nothing's running.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you have to have air coming from a source coming from somewhere, so you have makeup air coming from outside.
Sure, sure.
We do not have that.
You're not going to bring
So
in the,
I don't smell it
yeah.
until I open my door.
Yeah, yeah, the fresh air, if you will. That's kind of ironic, right?
But to the credit of all the first responders, I want to give a compliment to them while we're recording here. Nobody has lost a house.
Yeah,
No homes damaged.
Yeah, nobody lost a house. Nobody. I mean, and maybe there are some people with some health implications. I'm sure, but in general, I agree. I'm going to say the first responders were amazing.
I shouldn't say no homes damaged. That's correct myself. Nobody has lost a home.
No total
I think
loss.
there's been some issues with different things like
Yeah.
smoke smells, that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, all things being equal, that's
impressive.
amazing job. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about this today. So in the Pro Builder magazine, there's a section called 7 Ways to a Wildfire Prepared Home. So what they're saying is there are, in this country, there is a movement towards what you would call fire safe communities, not even just homes, because you could say, well, my home is fire safe, but what if everybody around you is not? So they're building neighborhoods that are fire safe, and there could be some insurance benefit of that, so you have to look at that. But this one just talked about some things that I think anybody could do at their house. And so I think this is a great thing. It's the Modern Homes Podcast. We're talking about tips and things you can be doing if you're worried. And look, a fire is just like a hurricane. It's just like maybe a flood water. You don't worry about it until it's happening. And then you go, oh, I wish we would have done this. So here's our goal at the show. We want to educate people. We want you to know some ideas.
Preparation is key a lot of times.
Absolutely.
And just off subject, but on subject, you are a safe home builder, correct?
Safe home builder. Safe homes being tied to the hurricanes. In fact, we just finished another safe home this week. We're basically fortifying the roof. So, the thing is, modern homes, see what I did there? Modern homes, they actually are built to current hurricane code around here. So every rafter has a tie down, and every wall has a critical load path. And so a hurricane comes in, you're generally very well protected. If you go back to some of the older homes that are not. So in the fortification process, we're going in and nailing down shingles and nailing down ASTM, high-class shingles, nailing down the roof decking. But this is specifically going to be about fire. So we'll kind of talk about a little bit and things that you should be thinking about if you own a home in the area or you're thinking about buying a home.
Sure.
Tip 1, these are best practices, Frank. They say cover your gutters. Okay, now we've all seen the gutter guards and things like that, but I think the specific reference is really, really good. What they're saying is, if you ever look at homes, and down here a lot of people don't have gutters, but
it was something for me to. I remember questioning you about when I first got here. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah. It's in this region, you just don't see a lot of it. But think about your gutters. Think about pine straw getting stuck in there and leaves. Now a fire breaks out. Guess what? The fire gets in to a certain level. All of a sudden, this stuff is fire, and you get a little cauldron
Up
going.
north, we call that kindling.
Kindling.
To help start the fire.
Oh, I got you right. Yeah. So this is something, and it's nice and well to say clean out your gutters all the time. Not always necessarily doable. So if you own a home, unless you're going to be constantly maintaining them, look into some stuff. There's products like Gutter Helmet makes a good one.
For sure.
It completely covers the gutter.
For sure.
So I thought that was pretty good. Enclose your eaves with a non-combustible material. So your eaves, they're drawing in material. I think a lot of the references that we're going to see here are relevant to other areas of the country. Now, part of the reason I'm saying that is in the coastal region of South Carolina, and probably a lot of the people are listening in southern regions, humid regions, we're not using a whole lot of wood-based product on an exterior. And if you are, you're replacing it in not too long. But this is still good. Countrywide, you're talking about, if you have a soffit, picture if you have a plywood soffit, and all of a sudden that heat's coming up, heat rises.
Which you would have in a drier area.
Yeah, very much so. So this is something to look at. Install non-combustible siding. Again, here you are. You got to look at it. Interesting process. In the hierarchy of doing your sidings, they have flame retardant sidings. They have just regular, basically wood. And a lot of building code are going to require certain things, so you can't just go in and put anything.
Where would the hardy plank fall in that?
Hardy plank's good. They actually recommend that as one of the things that you should be doing.
That's a prominent product here.
Hardy, it's a cementitious based product, so being cement based, really not flammable.
Yes.
And unlike vinyl, which vinyl isn't really what you would call flammable in its say, but it will melt. And now you'll have to do something about that.
Funny you should say that. Quite a few homes I have shown in the last few years, when you go back on the deck, you'll see a piece of "I got the grill too close to the house" siding.
Oh yeah,
where it's kind of warped a little bit.
Well, now I had this question the other day. Really not relevant to this, but lady asked me to redo her siding. Now, it's not typically something that my company is here to do, but we do it in cases where we're already doing other work. So
part of a bigger project.
Part of a bigger project. They have all wood siding, so it does happen around here. Yeah, this is right in Myrtle Beach. And she asked me the following question, and then just a little fun fact for a sidebar here. She said, "You keep mentioning, Rob, you're going to take off all the existing siding and then put on new siding. Can we not just put some sort of a foam over it and then cover that?" And I said, look, I do understand some siding guys do that. At that point, however, we're going through old compromised siding. You can't get a chance to go and reflash this properly. We can't get a look at what kind of rotting may be behind that siding. Yeah, you don't want to do that. Save a buck or two.
It's funny you should say that some people do that, but they're not Rob Clements with Carolina Bays.
Dang straight.
I don't know you to do that. That's not your thing.
I would rather...
You are far too thorough.
Well, I'd rather...
That's a compliment to you.
Yeah, no doubt. I'd rather pass on the job.
Absolutely.
Look, sometimes in our effort to save a buck or two, you turn around and then later on you get a leak in this situation and you go, what happened? Now you're finally going to do it the right way. So you did it cheap the first time. Now you're going to do it the right way and fix all the things. So, but look...
That's what they call Chuck in a truck probably did that.
Chuck in the truck probably does it. And I'm going to tell you something. If you're playing the long game, that's not long game talk.
No.
Yeah, I'm just going to cover over the top.
So if that's your forever home, then do it right the first time.
Hey, and look.
And you get what you pay for. And all those things, we can keep going with the analogies. They all apply.
And since we're talking about replacement, think about that. What good would it do to have a highly flammable product right behind your brand new siding, whatever that happens to be? Now, here's another thing.
A compromised product, like you said. It's already compromised.
Correct. That's why you're replacing it. And then the other thing is same thing with shingles. We'll hear a lot of this question. I want to go over my current shingles with shingles. Well, building code says I can do 2 layers of shingles. Building code says it, so therefore people are like, yes, I should do it. But I always have the same exact argument. Now we're going through a row of shingles that are degraded, and what kinds of problems can you have? I can't look at the roof deck. Anyway, I'm off on a tangent.
And just to finish off on that, you and I have done enough roofing work that we know that roofs do not wear evenly across them.
Yeah,
so
that's
you
fair.
have some more than other compromised areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, why not start from, hey, I'm going to save a couple grand and cost myself 20 grand later.
I'd rather have new underlayment, new shingles.
Yeah, absolutely.
New ridge vent.
And that becomes part of a good hurricane proofing process. So you're absolutely right.
We're right along with it.
Here we go. All right, now next up, upgrade windows. It says install exterior windows with at least 2 panes of glass. Now, here's the thing. You might be going, well, everybody has that. Not the older homes. Now, modern building code says we have to have, a certain energy efficiency our windows. So you're basically not going to see any single pane glass. However, put in those double pane glass. So if you're at home and you're thinking, well, it's been a long time, we've had these windows, I still see them around this town, change those out, the insulated glass will help you.
We don't have traditional historical areas here, right?
No, we do. Conway, Georgetown, 2
because I know in
districts.
the Northeast region, especially like in the Massachusetts state, because I had a friend that had the house there. They were in a historic district and they couldn't use anything but it was crazy.
Interesting.
Like now, you were less energy efficient to stay historic.
100%.
Like,
you know what's interesting?
I'd rather
live
in a new house.
we started getting into. And this is a completely different subject, but there are certain areas in the world where they have what is called a historic district, and you are trying to maintain the look. If you go to the courthouse, for example, and there's a conflict with modern building code versus the way they did it. And so some of them have done hybrid ideas.
That makes sense to me.
Right. So it's like, hey, you had single pane glass. We're going to make it a double pane glass.
With a look of an old window.
Right. And we're still going to do simulated divided lights instead of doing grills with the glass where the grills are in between. So a lot of good topics here, but anyway, so good stuff. Upgrade doors. You will still see the old wood doors occasionally. I'm still seeing them around as I'm doing house calls. Go to a fiberglass, go to a steel. And brand new houses are usually done with those, but something to look at. Upgrade your decks. Now, that's underrated. Upgrade your decks. You think about the deck boards, and I'm always telling people, use a Trex.
100%.
Don't use wood. It warps all that. But they're going to say,
do people use wood here?
Oh, yeah. My gosh. Well, when you look at...
That's got to be Warp City.
Frank, there's a tantalizing thing. In
Cost.
Saving money.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. If you're qualifying a contractor, listen to the way they talk. You know, somebody says, hey, I'm trying to get lowest price. I'm getting several bids. Give me a price on doing the deck. And I say to you, what's your agenda? And you say, well, we're looking for the best price. And I say, well, so it's to my advantage to give you the lowest priced quality material, right? So I'm trying to get you the lowest price material. And they say, well, yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, well, okay, well, I'm going to do a wood, but because Trex is a lot more expensive, but you're going to have more warping, more maintenance.
Yeah,
so you just don't want to get into it.
Even up north where I'm from, with way less humidity, the wood is that's a tough one.
It's a tough call. So me and Frank Dominic are on the same page as usual. But if you're at home thinking about it, I would tell you, here's the rub.
I would save longer and get the Trex.
And we got about 3 or 4 minutes, but I do want to hit a couple. These are very important. I don't do wood pergolas anymore. I do all aluminum pergolas. Now, here's the thing. Aluminum, a lot more expensive than wood. However, by the time you've replaced some of that wood that's warping, you've resealed it or repainted it, fixed all the things, guess what? The aluminum was cheaper over the life.
Long term, it's cheaper.
Yeah, you got that. They say don't put accessory dwellings too close to your house. We're talking about things like the sheds. We're talking about actual dwelling units. So
fire pits.
Fire pits. Well, and just in general, accessories not too close to your house. A couple other things, and we have a few minutes left, so I'm going to hit them up. Look at your landscaping. One of the things is there's always that argument. Do I do pine straw? Do I do mulch? Well, one would say a mulch, at least they have some mulches that have had some treatment done to them so they're less flammable versus I don't know of many pine straws that aren't flammable. There's that tindering you're talking about, right?
Yeah, kindling.
Kindling.
Yeah, pine straw when you're camping, that's what you use to start the fire.
Yeah,
because it burns fast.
Yes. Well, so this is something you have to look at. So look at your landscaping, what kind of things you're doing. Look underneath your deck. Make sure that your deck doesn't, you tend to collect a bunch of debris under the deck. Got to look at those.
That's a good one.
Again, looking at fire-rated roofing material, whether that is wood or shingles. Most shingles are going to be fire-rated if you're doing a fiberglass shingle. And then I'm going to give you one more, and we'll kind of start landing this plane. Remove back-to-back fencing. I thought that was kind of interesting because what they're saying is, think about the way a fence is connected to your neighbor's house. Your neighbor's house catches on fire. Now, what happens? The fence catches on fire. Now, the fence goes down. You're butted up to their fence. Now, your fence catches on fire. What's your fence connected to? Your house.
Typically your house.
Right. So they're saying in a fire-safe neighborhood, and we're talking best-case scenarios, if you can stay away from these things, you got some good ways to protect your house. And by the way, one last stat, just so you know that this is important. They said so far in 2024, more than 37,000 wildfires have burned over 7 million acres of land in this country. 4.8 million homes have been identified as being at high or extreme risk of wildfire. Should have started there. but that tells you something, right?
But moving here to South Carolina, a handful of years back, about basically 3 years, I did not realize that the wildfires were a thing here.
Hey, look, if you go back far enough, this is before you got here, there was a big fire in a place called Barefoot, which Barefoot's very desirable.
Familiar with that fire because of the
out.
house I was trying to buy for someone.
And we talked about a minute ago how our first responders did such a fabulous job over in Carolina Forest. What happened with that one was, and I'm not saying those first responders didn't do well, but I think we learned something from that, containment-wise, because homes were lost in that one.
I sold a condo last year, and my sellers, one of the things that appealed their unit to the buyer who was coming from out of state was they had a second floor unit over a pond, so they had a water view that was calm and serene, but they had an entrance to their deck from the ground. And I was like, "Hey, you got your own private entrance, that's nice." And my seller immediately said that was because those units over there burned to the ground X amount of years ago. They rebuilt them, and then the whole community got that access. So they had two accesses. They had two ways out of their house.
Well, you'll learn. I mean, hey, there's a reason there is something called an egress window building to building code. You have to have an egress window in every bedroom. So, all right. Frank, good show.
Yeah.
We're at the upper end of this, but everybody be safe. Make sure you get fire protected, and I think that's a good one for us to land our plane on.
And if you're looking to fortify your home, call Carolina Bays.
Yeah.
They're a contractor who does that.
Yeah, if you're looking at any kind of storm protection, we can help you with that. And the good thing is that overlapping will help do some of the things with fire protection, for example. 100%. So anyway, all right. Well, Frank, we're going to sign off for this one. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll catch you next time on the Modern Homes Podcast.